Hello and welcome to the Side Podcast channel, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSP. Like, share, comment on this YouTube version of the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from the match recaps and all the other content here on the channel, including this podcast, of course, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And of course, follow us on social media. I'm at SideBSP on Twitter, SidePod on Instagram. Join us for more. You are welcome. Let's kick things off looking back at the Champions League yesterday, and of course the last two places were known now, with both Chelsea and Bayern Munich, of course, joining the rest of the field, as if Bayern Munich was, in doubt that they're going to be joining in the quarterfinal. We're going to be talking about Chelsea versus Atletico Madrid first. And, this was, I think, a disappointing game from an Atletico Madrid point of view. Straight off the bat, it was a pretty unconvincing performance from Diego Simeone's boys. Nothing really stood out in this game from Atletico Madrid's point of view. It was even slower than usual for Atletico Madrid. Like, it was even a sloppier performance than what you expect from them, a side that is top of the table in La Liga. Like, that's not something, to take lightly, the fact that they are top of La Liga. Chelsea in front of them, a side that, yes, is on a good form, but not really the best side in the world. Not exactly the side that is setting the world on fire at the moment in the Premier League, but definitely they had all the game to control, really. And again, just as I mentioned in the review, the fact that they were too dynamic, too quick for them, just took them by surprise, it seems. They created the situations, always creating situations where there is numerical advantage for Chelsea on the wings in particular, the 2-on-1s, the 3-on-1s, the support coming from the midfield, the incredible hard work of N'Golo Kante and Mateo Kovacic, who seem to gel now and understand each other in this new system of Thomas Tuchel, in this 3-4-2-1 kind of thing, where they understand each other. Kante doesn't have to work as much ground, or to cover as much ground as possible, because there is fullbacks and there is three centre-halves behind him, and instead of running and covering the fullbacks, there is at least a centre-half going to be doing that, and there will be another wing-back that is going to be supporting. So there is a couple of decisions that could have gone either way in this game. Certainly a couple of situations where I thought they should have been a penalty, at least, on Rudiger on Suarez and Azpilicueta on Carrasco. Both could be considered penalty for different reasons, because at least the Rudiger one is pretty clear. I don't know how any referee doesn't really blow the whistle as a penalty, but definitely I'm not the kind of person that will stand on the refereeing mistakes or refereeing decision and argue with them as a reason for losing. But I don't think that anyway. I don't believe that Atletico Madrid lost because the referee didn't give them the two penalties. I really doubt that they would even gone on to defend the lead had they got one of those actions as a penalty and can scored it. I really doubt that they could defend the lead. I would have really thought that Chelsea at least would have equalised and Atletico would have not scored again, because that's how Atletico operate. They try and make the game as slow as possible, and considering that Chelsea managed to make it dynamic and managed to make it really, really quick, they couldn't resist it. The goals coming from two counters, and despite the fact that Chelsea had possessions for most of the game, the goals came from counters, but Chelsea's possession wasn't exactly futile. It was, pretty effective in the way that it stretched and exhausted Atletico's defense, forcing them to move a lot around the ball and trying to, cover spaces and run behind players, which of course doesn't really help. And you have the likes of Havertz having one of his best games this season, I would say. Ziyech as well, having one of his best games. Timo Werner, who's getting a lot of slack, of course, for not finishing or not scoring, but his link-up play has improved, his decision-making has improved, his movement has improved a lot. He moves a lot better, he makes decisions a lot better, and he links up a lot better with his players. Defensive strength is a plus for Thomas Tuchel, I think. His focus was on that point. People criticising him for not really giving too much importance for the attack, trying to be too clever with his rotation and turnover. But when things are working, things are working. Like, when it's given a result, Like, if ain't broke, do not fix it. That's, I think, the motto that Thomas Tuchel going in at the moment. Chelsea are working fine at the moment. Do not really, he doesn't really need to tinker with the formation, tinker with the lineup, and tinker with the setup of this team. Atletico Madrid on the other side, again, a side that is top of La Liga, that is not an easy feat to achieve, yet they still perform really, really badly. And their overall European campaign isn't that convincing. I said that on many occasions, that there is a complete contrast between the local campaign in Spain and the European campaign in Spain, in a European campaign for them. And even in La Liga, the last month or so, they started to falter massively, drawing and dropping points here and there, and really giving Real Madrid and Barcelona a chance out of nothing to get one over them and get the advantage over them in the title race. And I would say that even Barcelona now have more chances of winning La Liga than Atletico Madrid at the moment as it stands, considering the form the capital side is going in. So it definitely a question of whether Simeone is the right fit now for Atletico Madrid. Like, is it past its point that we say Simeone should be out of Atletico Madrid? Like, is the tie over? Like for 10 years now, Atletico Madrid have been entrenched in this identity of Diego Simeone, the defensive side of things. Although they could be an exciting side, and they have one of the best squads in Europe, I would say. When you have the likes of, Suarez and João Felix and Moussa Dembele and Angel Correa and Yannick Carrasco and Thomas Lemar as your attacking options, you really shouldn't be playing the defensive kind of formation. You shouldn't be doing this, but somehow you end up doing it. And you're still playing with the 4-4-2, defending and trying to sit deep and playing as less of a players, as few players as possible inside the opposition box, attacking with the least number of players possible. It doesn't work like that. When you put only 1 or 2 players inside the box of the other opponent when you're attacking, it doesn't really work like that. Yet still, the goals were baffling in that is Atletico Madrid were caught high. But somehow, I really want to say that what doesn't work for you doesn't work for you. Like, when he tried to play high and push high, the couple of occasions where they actually pushed really, really high and played their highest line, they were caught. Like, it was karma, I think, it was quote-unquote karma at its best incarnation, because Atletico Madrid, the 2 times they played the ball behind, the 2 times they played the high line superbly, they pushed all the numbers forward. They get caught completely, and on the counter, because they were exhausted, exposed, too slow to defend, too slow to react, they get caught, and the 2 goals were from counters. So that didn't bode well even for their defending ways. So now Atletico Madrid turn their attention out of La Liga, focus now on things to come in La Liga, because that's the only thing left to play now. As for Chelsea, the top 4, I think, is going to be a security, a guarantee. I think at the end of the season they're going to be going top 4, so we'll see how they're going to be doing in this competition. Could Thomas Tuchel replicate some of the run that he made last season with PSG? It depends, of course, on who they're going to be drawing in the quarter-final, and definitely there are some big fish. Some big fishes that they will not want to fry and they don't want to draw against in the quarter-final draw. Congratulations for Chelsea for making it to the quarter-final. The second game, of course, on the night on Wednesday was Bayern Munich versus Lazio, and it was pretty pedestrian, I would say. It was, the normal drill. With the absence of Neuer, it was pretty weird to not see him in goal in the Champions League. It's a lucky day for Alexander Nobel because he had another start of the Champions League nonetheless. Potentially he would have had another start in the potentially he would have had another start in the league on Saturday against Stuttgart, potentially, if Neuer continues to be absent. But I despite the fact that Bayern are victorious again, dominated again, but still, questions are more than the answers at the moment for Bayern, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, that people are somehow undermining Bayern's chances of being winners of the Champions League again, just because they defend really badly, or just because they don't... not to defend really badly, but they let in goals, and the only, I think, big issue about Bayern that people think about is their high line and their defence. But I really don't see why it's a bad thing. As long as Bayern can score 5 past an opponent while conceding one, it's okay. But definitely it's going to be a problem when you don't have the ability to score, or you can't score. Like, Bayern will score in almost any given game. Like 19%, 99%, they're going to be scoring in any given game. So the problem is that they need to improve the defending. And for most of the game, they did well, Bayern, to defend. They had, a good shape about them, and Lazio are not an easy side, really, despite the 4-1 advantage or the win again. This one, I don't think that Lazio were an easy side to defend, because when they break quickly, and they have, the quality in the middle of the park and in the attack to attack very well, and to just, dribble past the players in one-on-one situations. And definitely the 2-1, I think, was a given. The penalty for Lewandowski early on, in the first half, in the 33rd minute, then the goal from Choupo-Moting in the second half. And Bayern Munich, played this game on first gear. A win that would only matter for the stats and for the records, I would say, because the place in the quarterfinal is pretty settled and done. Obviously, the draw as well. Everybody's going to be quote-unquote afraid of Bayern, but still want Bayern at the same time, because some teams would even fancy Real Madrid at the moment. It's going to be interesting to see how the draw is going to be playing out, and certainly the big games are there and available. Liverpool, City, PSG, and Real Madrid. Those 4 options for Bayern Munich, really, in terms of big games. And the 3 left in Porto and Borussia Dortmund and Chelsea. If you consider Chelsea a lesser option, isn't exactly are not exactly easy options as well to play in the quarterfinals. But definitely Bayern Munich should be entering the next round as favourites, and should be really trying to do their very best to to maintain the momentum heading into the later fixtures of the Champions League. Enough Champions League, though, and let's talk about the biggest European competition of all time. It's, of course, the Europa League, because we're on Thursday at the moment, and the second leg of the round of 16 of the Europa League. And, of course, let's quickly go through what happened in the first leg of those games. Of course, in the Arsenal-Olympiacos game, Arsenal defeated Olympiacos 3-1. In the Dinamo Zagreb-Tottenham defeated Dinamo Zagreb in England 2-0. Granada defeated Malta in Spain 2-0 in the first leg. Roma defeated Shakhtar Donetsk 3-0 as well in the first leg. Man United drawn against Milan 1-1. Rangers drawn against Slavia Praha as well 1-1. Villarreal defeated Dynamo Kiev 2-0. And Ajax defeated Young Boys 3-0 in the first leg. Obviously the biggest game, again, just in the first leg and just in the second leg, and also the tightest game to call, is the Man United versus AC Milan tie, and this game in the San Siro between the side hosted by the Italian outfit is going to be also interesting as well. The first game was weird for Man United. It was a weird game, and AC Milan controlled it to a certain extent, set up the tempo really. Man United were not that good in terms of pressing in the middle. AC Milan were pretty solid in neutralising most of the danger that Man United would have, definitely in Bruno Fernandes, with the only time where he broke forward or he had space to give a pass, he picked up Amad Diallo for the goal in the game before the equaliser came late on, from a defensive mistake that was pretty expected if you watch Man United this season or of them last season. You know that in set piece they can falter and they can mark in a bad way. So what is expected from this second leg between those two sides? I certainly expect Milan to control the game as well. Stefano Pioli, he needs to set up his side to control the game, to let this game do not evolve into a counter-attack kind of game, or attack versus counter-attack. It should be controlled. It should be under control for AC Milan. The kind of game that they need to make is a game of slow pace, really. Do not let United, counter-attack you. Try to take the game as long as possible into that 0-0 route, and then try and hit when Man United put all of their might looking for that goal, looking for that potential winner, of course, because, the 0-0 result certainly takes Milan through, but it won't be the satisfying result. And if they play for that 0-0 draw, I think the players eventually would, go for it and maybe leave space and maybe lose sort of the shape tactically, trying to defend that 0-0 draw maybe and do not care about attack. The return of Zlatan Ibrahimovic is going to be a plus in this one. For AC Milan, if he's fit 100% to start that game, he didn't, of course. It wasn't featured in the game against Napoli in the weekend, of course, in Serie A. Mandzukic is still unavailable. Calabria, Leao, and Rebic are also a big doubt for this one. With Calabria missing on the game against Napoli, with Dalot starting on the right, potentially he could start again on the right. Theo Hernandez is available, so there's going to be no problem on that left hand side like it was in the first leg where Theo Hernandez was absent. The fact is, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how Man United going to go forward, because this could go either way. This could go either Man United, going through, going high and starting strong to try and attack, try and score the early goal, try to get the game under control, try to get the game in their own pace and in their own tempo, setting the tempo, forcing AC Milan to get out of their shell pretty much very early to go for an equaliser, and that would open spaces for them to even add more goals. Who knows? Their away form is incredible, so they could really do that, and they could be successful in doing that as well. Despite the fact that they have no Martial and Cavani available, no Bailly as well because of a knock, and it definitely would be interesting to see how they're going to be playing forward with no Martial, no Cavani. Green with James and Rashford seems to be like the rightful option at the moment. Potentially it would be Rashford up front, Greenwood one side, James on the other, and Bruno Fernandes behind them. Pogba is available for this tie, so we might see him on the bench. We might see him making a feature. Van de Beek as well is available, so we might see him featuring as well. It definitely is going to be an interesting situation for Man United. Again, it's all about how Man United set the tempo. And the title of this episode, Can Man United flip the table? Can be pretty deceiving, because it looks like they lost in the first leg, or they're going to make a remontada away from home. But the fact is, the game is under the control of Milan. Like, the game is in Milan's hands. Certainly, Milan are the ones going to be dictating probably the pace in the first 15-20 minutes, and we'll see how Man United would deal with that as the game progresses, as the game goes on. Is it going to be the caving-in, usual Ole Gunnar Solskjaer stuff, or we're going to witness, more sort of attacking, thrilling kind of perspective from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to go forward and try to grab a winner and try to sit on that winner, or force Milan to open spaces, because Milan could get stretched, and we saw them get stretched in a couple of matches this season in Serie A, and it's not a weird thing to happen. It could happen that they could get stretched, and the spaces are going to be found, and United, when find spaces to counter-attack and to play quickly behind the lines, they do have the personnel to do it, and they could be dangerous in that. So it's all about setting the tempo for AC Milan versus up in that tempo for Man United since the first minute. The rest, of course, of the fixtures, nothing really special in them. I think most of them are pretty done and dusted, unless a surprise happens in them. Arsenal, 3-1 advantage in the first leg. It doesn't look like it's going to be overturned really from Olympiacos, unless it's a complete collapse, but I don't see that happening. The performance against Tottenham in the derby really gives a lot of positives for the club. It gives a lot of positives for the fans, that they will not be losing that advantage, and there won't be the same trauma that haunted Arsenal from last season in the same round against the same opponents. Tottenham against Dinamo Zagreb away from home. It's going to be tripped to the minimum damage possible, I would say. The chances of Dinamo Zagreb winning 3-0 here, very slim. The first game was so much domination from Tottenham Hotspur, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be going about it, the speed in which they're going to be going about this game away from home. Molde versus Granada. Granada can continue their exploits in the Europa League. 2-0 in the first leg. Nothing, I think, to be afraid about from Granada. They could be able to grab the winner, finish the job there in Molde, and a draw maybe, or even winning again would be the right result in that game. Shakhtar Donetsk versus AS Roma as well, pretty done and dusted. 3-0 in the first leg for the capital side of in Italy. against a Shakhtar Donetsk side that, went from the highs of beating Real Madrid away from home in the Champions League to the lows of being, eliminated unceremoniously from the Europa League by Roma. Of course, no disrespect for Roma, but the fact is, Shakhtar Donetsk, pretty good feature in the European competitions in the last couple of seasons. I've been, semi-finalists of the Europa League last season. But definitely, they experienced the ups and downs of the journey in the European competition this season. Rangers, Slavia Prague, that's a one for the interesting column. Of course, the Rangers, winning the title under Steven Gerrard, one of the best sides in Europe, I would say, and winning their 55th title in the Celtic in the Scottish League, ending the domination of Celtic. Being undefeated for 40 plus games in all competitions is an incredible run, and they want to continue that against Slavia Prague at home, and I fancy them really to go through to the quarterfinal of the Europa League, and it's going to be a really interesting situation to to grow and to develop with Rangers in the Europa League. They could be an outsider's chance, I would say, to win that competition, and that would be really important for Steven Gerrard. Villarreal versus Dinamo Kiev, also the first leg ending 2-0 for the Spanish side away from home. So at home in La Ceramica, I don't really fancy anything happening against them. I think they're going to be able to finish the job as well. They have enough good players to do that, and Young Boys hosting Ajax, defeating them 3-0 with the brilliant late surge from them in that first half and the first leg, of that game. Really, the deal going through, of course, in the midweek or the mid of last week, really, for one of their players in Brendan Brobbey. One of the Dutch talent, of course, the 19-year-old Dutch talent in Brian Brobbey, going to Leipzig reportedly. I mean, it's one of the biggest coups, I think, for Leipzig in this season. He's a great hand. He scored against Young Boys in the first leg. Only in 9 minutes played, he scored a goal, and he's an incredible player. He looks like a very promising talent for Ajax. Of course, this leg is done and dusted. I think Ajax are going to be going through. There's no doubt about it. So it should be just formalities. The second leg in Switzerland. That's it from me for this episode. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and enable notifications to receive all the updates from these match recaps and the podcast episodes. Of course, you can listen to on Spotify, Good Podcast, or any other platform. Follow us on social media, PSP on Twitter, PitchSetPod on Instagram. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.